Hi guys, I'm Mike and this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to another F1 Worldwide, the fan podcast, and we are back with another fan today, a fan channel. I often find you commenting in this section, Sam. I think it started off a bit with the feeder series, but yeah, I've mentioned his name there. It's Sam, and Sam O'Gara in the comment section. So Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's been good, it's good to be on the show.
Hi, it's great to kind of have you on, and obviously, yeah, we chat regularly in the comments, so it's nice to kind of chat F1, and we've got an interesting one today. So obviously, I think it would be when this comes out. I think it's about a week ago that the video came out with Alex that I think you watched, Sam, where we did looking at kind of F3 drivers in 5 years' time, and obviously in his channel we did F2 drivers. So we're going to look today on F1 drivers, F1 drivers, F1 in general, what it's going to look like in 5 years. Now, to keep it simple, we did have a kind of pre-chat before recording that we're going to keep the same 10 teams. We're going to say that everyone kind of survives all this, but it's kind of having a look at where the teams might be, maybe saying who we think is going to be the top or bottom teams around about that time, and go from there. But we're going to work our way from the bottom up. So Sam, I'm going to hand it over to you first. We start off with Williams. 5 years time, what's going to be the case? What's happening at Williams?
So I think in 5 years' time, Williams will be in a slightly better position than they are at the moment. They got a big investment from Latifi's father, so that will take them quite far, I'd say. So in 5 years, I have them down as Dan Ticktum from F2. I think he's a very talented guy, and I think he's in the Williams Youth Academy, so I think he'll get up there. He's not doesn't have the best temper, but I think now that he's so close, I think he'll perform. And then this one's a bit of an odd one, but I have Nikita Mazepin from F2 as well. On merit, he probably shouldn't be in Formula One, but his father owned a big chemical company, and I think investment money talk in Formula One. So I think he could get a seat in a couple of years.
That is a very interesting one. That's certainly a curveball. Out of names I thought you might possibly mention, Nikita Mazepin wasn't one, but you know what, his the money argument is a very good one, and if Nicholas Latifi doesn't perform, it's so hard on Latifi. This is the hardest one, I think, one of the hardest teams I think to do, because Latifi brings that big investment. We don't know how he's done, and obviously with only his highest finish, second in F2, maybe it is open up, and it does seem for a while Williams are going to have to rely on pay drivers. But I agree with Dan Ticktum. I think he will be there, and because they gave him a lifeline, I can agree with that. But yeah, Nikita Mazepin, I'm not sure who I think it's an interesting shout. I think there'll certainly be a pay driver. I'm not sure, who it might be. Mazepin would definitely have to improve on performances, because he had his shot with ART and he didn't do great. That's the only thing putting me against him. But yeah, and I don't know. But that's an interesting pick and an interesting one to start off with, Sam.
Yeah, there was a couple of names. I did have Latifi down as well, but I think he will be out because I don't think he'll be able to perform up to the standard that they require. And then I also have Aitken, who's also with Williams at the moment, but I think they'll opt for Ticktum.
I think Ticktum's definitely the most talented out of them. It's going to be really interesting to see how his kind of F2 season goes. But for me, I had Jack Aitken. I just think the budget thing will hold him back, and unless he has a standout year this year, I think he may struggle. He certainly has the ability, I think, to compete in F1. I just don't know whether it's enough to get it over the line. But Dan Tickton plus a pay driver, I think, is definitely one. We'll go with Mazepin. That's interesting pick. So I suppose that probably moves us on to our second team, and that is Haas. And who have we got leading the charge of Haas forward?
I have gone for Armstrong at the moment. He's currently in F2 at the moment. I can't remember who he's driving for, but he's very talented. And with the Ferrari links, I thought he could go into Haas. And I think he'll have a very good year this year. So I think he should get super license points, no problem, and then work his way up, hopefully to Ferrari in a couple of years.
Marcus Armstrong is he's a good one. I know someone you talk to quite a lot on Twitter. David is a huge fan of Marcus Armstrong. I think he really likes him, and he has raw pace, and yeah, obviously part of the Marcus Armstrong. Which team? I mean, I should know this from going on. Let me get it up here in terms of carry on. Have you got it up? I thought it was ART. I knew it was one of the big boys, and he can still do well, and yet obviously the super license points, big thing. Obviously he's been pretty close. Obviously Robert Schwartzman's highly rated, and he's been pretty close fighting Robert throughout his entire junior career, hasn't he?
Yes, he is. He has, and they've been quite competitive throughout, and I think they'll both make it to F1 in a couple of years.
I think he certainly he for me certainly has the talent to, and I think at some point Haas are, with that Ferrari Academy, for me being as good as it is, that they've got to at some point go, you know what, he's not a bad driver. Like Alfa Romeo didn't do bad getting Charles Leclerc for a season, did they? So it wouldn't be the worst thing for them. Yes, they can't build a team round, but he certainly would be able to get some good performances if they paired him with a... Well, I'll leave that up to you. Who is partnering Marcus Armstrong in our scenario?
This guy, I don't think you've heard of him, Theo Pourchaire. I'm not sure if you know him. He's obviously very talented. So, yeah, he's in F3 at the moment, and I think he's going to be a future world champion. Hope and start off with Haas.
Two drivers. I mean, I suppose at Marcus Armstrong, we're assuming that he's getting up within next year or the year after. And so therefore he would be the experienced one alongside Taylor. Yes, we are well aware. I mean, if you guys just watch the F1 side of things and not the feeder series, you won't realise that Mark basically has a love affair with Theo Pourchaire. And if he could turn Feeder Fridays into the Theo Pourchaire show, then he would well and truly do it. I mean, this guy, look, it's really early in his career, and we can't definitely say, but from what he's shown, he looks a top talent, doesn't he, Sam?
He does, yeah. He did really well in ADAC last year, so in a very competitive field. So I think he's definitely one to watch for the future.
He certainly is, and I mean, we in that F3 video in 5 years' time, he was the guy that we said was most likely to make that step up to Formula One. So very, very interesting in that. On Haas, I do see them. I maybe see a Marcus Armstrong or a Theo Pourchaire rather than both. I know you are a big fan of the feeder series, so I just see the way that Haas have operated and experience. I can see. I mean, I know he kicked Gunther Steiner's door in. But I can see Kevin Magnussen, if Haas are still around, I can see Kevin Magnussen still being around and doing a sort of Sergio Perez style, really making the team his own, and then them supplementing with a Marcus Armstrong or a Theo Pourchaire, depending who's available. That would be the only change that I would make. Oh, exactly, and I think it's controversial because I know Gunter's popular. I think under different management, they could actually be a very good driver pairing. I'm just not entirely sure it's the best of environments. But I mean, Grosjean I think is quite fragile anyway on the confidence side of things. You certainly saw that in the Series 1 of Drive to Survive. But in the right scenario, the guy is rapid and his technical knowledge for developing a car is great. But yeah, I would say a Magnussen, and I'd go Marcus Armstrong, because I think with the Ferrari link, that makes the most sense partnership for me. That would be what I'd change.
So next up is Alfa Romeo, and I see them having Pierre Gasly as experience. So I think he'll still be around in Formula One, but I don't think he'll be driving for a top team. He definitely has talent, but I think his time is gone with the Red Bull after the disastrous Red Bull season. So I can see him sticking around in Alfa Romeo and just helping them progress. And then I have Enzo Fittipaldi from F3, who's in the Ferrari Driver Academy, and they have a seat in Alfa Romeo, and I can see that being extended. So I can see them putting Fittipaldi in, and he's done very well in his FIDA series. He's done well in ADAC and Italian F4, which are renowned for being very strong breeding grounds. So I can see them going for a youth and then an experienced Pierre Gasly.
I think that's a really good shout, because I agree with you. I can't see Pierre Gasly making it back up to Red Bull unless Verstappen left, and I can't see Verstappen leaving. And the other teams, I'm sure, will come onto it, but they have their own. Ferrari have their own juniors that they'll want to promote, and they've got Charlie Leclerc. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to displace that. Mercedes have their own talent, and I'm sure we'll come on to the guy that I'm sure we both think will probably be at Mercedes by that time. But yeah, I think Gasly in an experienced development role with Alpha, I think that's a really good place for him. He's certainly, I imagined him in a sort of team like that. And obviously Kimi, I imagine, would have retired by then. But I don't know. Yeah, you don't know. He might be like into another 5-year contract or something. Who knows? Kubica will be too old, and Gio would have either progressed to Ferrari or not been in the picture. I'm not sure he'd be stuck around too much on that front. But yeah, you had to, for a junior driver, you had to go a little bit out there, because the guys in F2 would be too old in 5 years' time to get that seat. So Enzo's an interesting one. He is one with the talent to match the Fittipaldi name, isn't he? And like you said, he's done well in the kind of junior series today. But I wouldn't disagree with that one, Sam. I think good pick for Alfa Romeo there.
Okay. Aston Martin are next up, and I think they'll be at the front of the grid with their new investment. I think they will be fighting for podiums and wins quite regularly in a couple of years' time. But I still see them with Lance Stroll in a seat. So I think with Lawrence being the major investor in the team and owning it, and Lance not being the worst driver in the world, I can see him sticking around for quite a few years.
I mean, you've got to make Mark very happy. He's very happy with Lance Stroll there. I completely agree with you. I think the combination of Lawrence Stroll's money and with the name of Aston Martin, so I think they'll get a swell of support as well, so they'll be a popular team. And also the fact that factory team is one of the best factory teams in Formula One in terms of what they've produced for Force India over the years, over obviously, from the Jordan days as well, but most recent time Force India Racing Point, that they've proven that they can produce some pretty decent cars and competitive cars as well. So yeah, Lance, no, I think he's gonna be gone. I just think I know a lot of people think his dad's there so his job's safe, and he is a competent driver. but I just don't think he'll improve enough to the level, and I think he may be dropped to maybe like a test driver, so he'll very much be within the team and still get stuff within the car, but I don't think if Aston Martin are being competitive here, I don't think they're gonna keep on Lance Stroll.
Okay, yeah.
But who is partnering Lance for you?
This one is quite odd. I went for Stoffel Van Dorn. I think he'll make it back to F1 because he does have the talent, and I don't think he'll be picked up by Mercedes or Ferrari, but I think he'll find the seat in Aston Martin.
This has been a very this is probably, well, other than obviously Haas with the two junior guys, it's probably been your most interesting one to date. Stoffel Van Dorn and Lance Stroll. I mean, if Stoffel ever came back to Formula One, it would definitely be to a top team. And if we're saying that Aston Martin are going to be a top team, then it's definitely in the ball game. Plus, Aston Martin have a Mercedes link. You could see it. Obviously, Toto Wolff and Lawrence Stroll are close. If Stoffel is successful in Formula E, I think he would view Formula One as unfinished business. So I'll tell you what, I could see Stoffel happening. So I'll go with Stoffel with you. But how old's Checo's 30 now and would be 35? Would Perez still be around in 5 years' time? Maybe not. Maybe a youngster, but just or who would be the next kind of consistent bloke off the blocks?
There is a few people, but yeah. Callum Ilott is another name I was thinking of for that seat. He's doing very well in Formula 2, and I think he may be able to make the jump up. That was another name I was thinking of.
That's got real potential, and if in 5 years' time he had made the step up, he would have been consistent and certainly solid enough for a number 2. It's difficult. It's trying to think of those young guys around. I mean, if Alex Albon didn't work out at Red Bull, I could see an Albon at Aston Martin as a Stoffel and Albon partnership. I think that would work reasonably well.
Yeah, Albon could be in a seat, and I actually do have him for a later seat. So I think he'll still be around.
We'll leave that there. I'll tell you what. I'm going to put. So you had Stoffel and Lance. I'm going to go Stoffel and Albon. I'm going to put Albon in the Aston seat.
Okay then, yeah, that could be quite interesting.
Man, so who we got next up?
AlphaTauri, or Toro Rosso, formerly known as. This one was quite difficult because you never know what's going to happen with that seat. Like, Kvyat being around for long enough, he may stick around, probably not. But so I went with Doohan from Formula 3. Is it Jake Doohan?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's heard the Red Bull Junior program. I think he's reasonably talented. Like, he's very talented, and I think he might be like an Albon type where he's kind of a support driver. And I think in a couple of years' time he'll be in an AlphaTauri. He's still quite young, so I don't think he'll be in Red Bull yet, but I think he will be up there. And then partnering him, I have Richard Vershaw. This one was the second seat was quite difficult because the Red Bull Junior Academy, there's a lot of people who either I don't think will be in Formula One or are still quite young and won't have and still won't be like eligible for Formula One. So I went with Vershaw as a road pickup.
Well, I mean, he used to be part of the academy, so if he impresses still, I mean, Helmut's proven that he does ring up old flames, and he exactly. So he'll bring them back into the fold. This is tough. It's definitely going to be Red Bull Juniors. It's just which ones. Maybe I'm gonna put this. This will make Alex very happy. I'm gonna put Dennis Hauger in there.
Okay, yeah.
And I think he'd still be developing at that stage, because I think minimum 3 years at the moment to get there. And so, yeah, 1 or 2 years around there. And who else? Again, would have to be one of the F3 ones. The F2 guys would be too old. I think Liam Lawson, very good. The only thing I was thinking about Liam is he's maybe a little too old. I could see, because he's got a lot of super license points.
Yes, he does, yeah.
Because he could, I think technically, if he does well this year, he could technically get enough super license points to compete in F1 for the 2021 season, couldn't he?
If he does well enough in Formula 3, I think so, yes.
Yeah, so he's not far off. That's why I'd lean more towards a Dennis Hauger and a Igor Fraga. I think would be my two that I would go for. They're definitely two Red Bull juniors, or they could be an unknown who gets picked up. I don't know, maybe. I mean, Mark would be incredibly upset if it happened, but maybe a Théo Pourchaire could slot into this seat. But yeah, it's certainly going to be guys who are around about the F3 level now. So yeah, I'm going to go Hauger and Fraga, as they're both in the academy.
For most of these seats, I would looking at F2 and F3, because that tends, in 5 years, most people don't progress from like Formula 4 and like. So I was just good looking at the higher end of junior categories for most of these, with the exception of one driver who will be coming up in a few minutes.
Oh, excited to find out. But yeah, AlphaTauri is probably the hardest one on this list, because it's the only one that is an out and out B team that you can guarantee they'll both be Red Bull juniors, because the team isn't basically I mean, I know Gasly and Kvyat are kind of quite an experienced lineup at the moment, but generally as a whole, the team has been youngsters looking to progress to the senior team, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. And another name I was thinking of was Igor Fraga, who's he's F3 and he's competed in Formula One Esports as well and Toyota Racing Series. He's very talented, but I can see him probably going to Formula E instead. So
yeah, I think we recently discussed it. Maybe Super Formula and Formula E kind of places for him, because he has some Japanese heritage for there. But if he impresses, because he was awesome in the TRS this year. He was really good. Like he was lightning quick in that. And Liam Lawson, like you said, who is impressive, lost out to him. Fraga was able to claim victory and obviously grab the New Zealand Grand Prix title as well for that, which I know Josh Revel is a big advocate of on that front. But I think that's I'll go with Fraga and Hauger, and you are going for
Duhan and Vershaw.
Very interesting. Okay, and so does that move us on to No, we had Aston Martin points, so yeah, it's Renault, isn't it?
This one was one of the most difficult ones for me, because they have a lot of young drivers, and there's a lot of current drivers who could be in that seat as well. I have here Alex Albon. I see him in a Renault in 5 years. I think he's 24 at the moment, so he'll be 29, have a lot of Formula 1 experience, know the technical side. I think he'll help them. And I think Christian Lundgaard, the Renault U driver. So I think they'll want to be fighting for titles at that point, and they'll want a Renault youth driver in their team for good, like for publicity, and so I think Lundgaard's the best they have at the moment, and I think he will be ready in a couple of years.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. For me, this seat rolls around 3. Ricardo would have been too old. Ocon, it depends. Okay, so it depends around 4 for me. If Ocon impresses, then Ocon will retain and he'll be the experienced guy that they build a team around. Zhao comes into it. Lundgaard, for me, most likely, if Ocon does well, is Ocon Lundgaard. Then I could see either Lundgaard or Zhao, and then throwing the curveball into it, it's certainly a place where I could see Teo. A top French talent. If he isn't picked up by a Red Bull, Ferrari, or a Mercedes, Teo would 100% be picked up by the Renault Academy, and he would definitely make it into that seat. So who I'm going to go bold. I'm going to go French, but I'm going to go Teo and Lundgaard. I think just because Renault, for me, I think I've spoken it in the past in terms of their academy. They've got some really, really good guys in there. I mean, Oscar Piastri has recently joined as well, and he's a bloke who could be knocking on the door in 5 years' time if he keeps going the way that he's going. And they've got just so much top talent in there, but nowhere to put it. Because they've already got 2 pretty talented guys in Ricciardo and Ocon in the seats, and the youth, that they're only young drivers for so long. They can't just keep competing in F2, and if they win it, then they definitely need to put them somewhere. And so loaning them out, I suppose, is the next option, which gets a little bit tricky because teams, if they're not supplying engines to anyone, they don't really have any bargaining tools. But Renault, definitely, I agree. It's very, very tough one. But that moves us on to McLaren, I guess.
It is, and so I still have Lando Norris in the seat. I think he's very good, and I think they'll build around him for the next 8 or 9 years. And then this one was a bit of a rogue shout, but I went for Zane Maloney, who won the British F4 last year. I think he's from the Barbados, but he is British links, and I think he's very talented, and I can see him joining McLaren, rising up through the youth quite fast and getting a seat.
That would be incredible rise for Zane, because where's he going to be competing? Is it regional European this year?
Euro Formula Open.
Euro Formula Open. It's that when we went through the ladder system, it's those ones that it's just a switch around in the letters, and it's a whole different ball game. But Zane Maloney is a really interesting. He certainly feels like a guy that would be picked up by McLaren, and if Lando's there 5 years' time, he's certainly the bloke that they've built a team around.
Yeah, because they have no youth drivers at the moment, so I was thinking who may they pick up, and then subsequently who may they put in that seat. So I was thinking, looking through British drivers because they tend towards them, and Maloney kept coming back, and so I thought, why not give him a shot in the McLaren seat?
I think that's a good shout. Now you see, I'm getting on here, and I realised that I've got Mick and Robert, and I think they're both going to make it, but the question is whether they'll still be around in 5 years' time. I can definitely see Robert, and which then probably means that I see Mick. So and they've made it and they haven't got into the teams below, I'm probably, oh god, this is difficult on where to put people. But I'm gonna put Lando Norris. I believe again, same. He's gonna be there, and I'm gonna put Robert Schwartzman as his teammate.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. He will definitely be in F1 by then. He's very talented.
Yeah, it's just where he'll be, because there have been a lot of talented guys from the Ferrari Academy who've gone into F1, and yeah, Checo was part of the Ferrari Academy, wasn't he, before McLaren picked him up? So they've proven they have done it. I know not so recent, but I think Schwartzman might be a guy that they do it, because the guy I'm going to put in the Ferrari seat is there's too much with it to do so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see McLaren being quite competitive in a couple of years as well. So I think Norris will be their number one driver while they develop Maloney.
I think that's a good shout. It's interesting. It is really interesting going 5 years' time. You start throwing these names in, and then suddenly you're like going, oh, but what about him? What about, will he go? But at the end of the day, there's only 20 seats. But I think that's a real credit to show that all the talent that's coming through, because there are so many guys that you go, I can actually see him making it to F1, rather than, there's not really, it'll probably be the same guys.
Yeah, because I was looking at 5 years ago in the 2016 one, and I think I counted 12 drivers who were there 5 years ago that are now. So so I kind of went. I was looking at some of their ages, and I was looking at how long they've been in F1, and I was thinking, like, will they still be there in 5 years, or will they not?
It is a tough one, isn't it? It is a tough one. But that moves us on from McLaren, and now we're into the big three. Or will they be the big three, really, at that stage? I mean, I can easily see that McLaren and Aston Martin pushing around the top. Mercedes may have dropped off a bit in my books, and Ferrari are always there or thereabouts, and Red Bull might have gone back up. So it might have been a dip in Mercedes, but maybe, hopefully, with these new regs, everything could be a bit more level with a few fighting for the championship. But
allow more people fighting for wins and podiums. Yeah, that's what we all want.
It would be awesome, wouldn't it? But Red Bull, who are you going to put in Red Bull?
So I have Max Verstappen still there, franchise boy. I think that he'll stay there for a really long time.
Yep, I agree.
And then I have, apart from him, Dennis Hauger.
Oh. So, obviously, I brought in Dennis Hauger in the AlphaTauri. Whoa, Dennis Hauger's already gone there. Top talent. He's a very talented guy.
He is. I can see him maybe having 1 year in AlphaTauri and then moving up. So I think he'll be in Red Bull, because he definitely has the pace to be there. It's just whether they want it. And then Max Verstappen, he will be there for years to come.
I mean, yeah, Max has the team built around him perfectly. He's great. Now, I just feel that there might be a Japanese driver there. I don't know who.
Yeah. I think they have Yuki Tsunoda, don't they? I think.
Well, they do have Yuki Tsunoda, but I'm not sure if he's capable of making it.
No, I don't think so either. But there's not the biggest Japanese influx of drivers at the moment.
No, it would be guys coming over, but if not, I suppose Max kind of does have a really strong link with Honda, so that could be enough to make him happy. I'm going to go for more hope here rather than what I think will happen, and I'm gonna put in Yuri Vips.
Oh yes, yeah.
I like him a lot. I think he's talented, and he fits the age bracket.
Yeah, he is very talented, and I would love to see him in Formula One. Yeah. he's in Super Formula, so I'm not sure. Japan's always quite difficult for people to go over to, so I'm not sure how he'll perform. But I'm excited to see that.
But if he does it,
yeah, if he does well, I think he's owed a seat at that point.
absolutely, because he's certainly been given the hard route, and it's the funding thing on that front. But Red Bull at that stage, if he does well in Super Formula and gets into the Alpha Tauri seat, say next year, 2 years time, then he could easily progress to Red Bull in 5 years.
Yeah, the Red Bull have a lot of great junior drivers, so the AlphaTauri and Red Bull seats are quite difficult.
It's always the one that I think they were kind of the original kind of masters of the driver academy who really invested in it, and so it's still very good. Maybe it's a little harder to get the talent through than they used to, but you certainly expect a few of them to have gone through. And so I'm going to back Yuri Vips here, because out of hope more than anything else.
Yeah, hopefully he is very likable, and I do want him to get to F1.
It would be great to see, even if it isn't with Red Bull. It'd be nice to see if someone else picked him up. But I'm going to stick him in the Red Bull seat. I'm going to be positive. So we are now closing in on the top two. So Ferrari, who are we going to stick alongside Charles Leclerc?
Yeah, so Charles Leclerc I do see him sticking around, and I have him with Rob Schwartzman. I think Robert Schwartzman is probably the best of their youth academy at the moment, and I can see him being put in that Ferrari seat to partner Leclerc.
Yeah, I think I may be proving wrong with this. Obviously, I put Schwartzman in McLaren. I think Schwartzman's a very good bet. I think that's a very likely partnership in Ferrari, and I think your partnership at Ferrari would be a large majority of people's. But I'm going to go the romantic here, and I'm going to put Mick in that seat, because if he makes it to F1, and if he's made it to F1 in 5 years, he will be driving for Ferrari. Whether he achieves the heights of his dad, or whether he just becomes second fiddle to Charles and helps Ferrari secure constructors, which I think he'd still consider a successful career in its own right, helping Ferrari to succeed again. But I'm going to do it. I know some people. I know Mick seems unpopular, and there's a lot of doubt whether he is actually that good. But this F2 season, certainly when it gets going, certainly will help to alleviate some of those thoughts. I just think with Mick, I'm going to back him here. Mick Schumacher, Ferrari. I'm going to be the romantic. I'm going to make him. He's on this path to get to Ferrari. I'm going to let him fulfill it.
Yeah, I think we'd all love to see that, him stepping into the seat that his dad occupied.
I think so. I'll throw one in there. Say Mick failed and Robert didn't end up there. Who would you put in that Ferrari seat?
Oh, maybe Callum Ilott. I would say he's an F2. He's a Ferrari Youth Academy driver. I think he's still on their radar for the Formula One seat, but I think with Schumacher and Schwartzman, I think he's like third choice at the moment. But I do think he's very talented, and if Schwartzman or Schumacher don't make it, I would back him to get fighting at the top of the grid.
I think Ilott's a good shout. I think he's popular, and he certainly would be consistent. I'd back the man Giovinazzi. I know that's bold. He's
I do think he'll get a Ferrari seat, but I don't think he'll stick in there for a couple. I don't think he'll stick there for like 3 or 4 years.
I just see that. I mean, obviously, most likely we think it's a shootout between Schwartzman and Mick. But I think if he does get there and he does prove a great teammate to Charles, he could be the next Rubens. But even better, because he's an Italian in the prancing horse. I think outside of Mick and Robert, he's probably the most realistic because he for me seems the perfect number 2 driver because he wouldn't challenge Charles, but he'd be competitive enough to get the points they need in the constructors. He's Italian, and they haven't had an Italian in Ferrari. I suppose since Giancarlo Fisichella did his short stepping stint, but they haven't had a Italian properly in Ferrari for I don't know how long. It's been a very long time, so he's the best suited to get that position. So yeah, it'd be interesting with him.
Yeah, I think he could. I think he'll get a Ferrari seat at some point, and the Tifosi will be happy.
They'd be very happy. So that moves us on. We come nearing the end of this. What should we call it? Crystal ball look into the future of F1. But yeah, we're rounding off for Mercedes, and should we both agree that George Russell's going to be there?
Yeah, he's destined for that seat, and I think he'll be their lead driver.
I agree. I mean, I don't think I'd hide my feelings. I quite like George, and I also think he has the talent to back it up. And he's a very driven and focused person. Certainly a guy who can drive a team forward, and he certainly seems like someone that Mercedes would be wise to get behind.
Yeah, I think he'll be there for a while and win a few championships. I don't think they'll have the dominance they have at the moment, but I think they will still be up near the front.
I think they'll be like Ferrari were after 2004. They weren't at their dominant levels, but they were still up there and thereabouts for the next, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4 years. Obviously 2009 was an awful year, and then 2010, 2012 they were there or thereabouts again. But yeah, I can see them very much. They have too much of a good infrastructure not to be competitive at the top, but they certainly will lose their dominance.
Yeah, I don't think any team can survive that long at the top without being challenged.
No, I mean, they are writing history season on season, but it's certainly, I don't see in 5 years' time that we're talking about Mercedes winning another 5 constructors and drivers championships. I mean, I really desperately hope not, because we could have some great racing, but geez, that would be, you were like, not again. Unbelievable. But who's gonna partner George?
I have Carlos Sainz. I think he's only 25 at the moment, so he's still fairly young for a Formula One driver, and he has a lot of raw speed. So I can see him being picked up by a top team, and I have Mercedes here, so I can see him driving there for a few years.
I mean, this is brilliant because I was genuinely thinking Carlos Sainz as well. In my head, he was the man. I was like, obviously we've both displaced him from McLaren and have him move on. I think he was happy with McLaren, but I think he would have moved on. And Mercedes seem they're a serious outfit, and Sainz is a very serious driver, and I think he'd be a perfect fit for them and a perfect fit alongside Russell.
Yeah, I think he'll not be like a Bottas type where he will move over, but I don't think he will. I don't think he'll be the number one driver.
No, and he's certainly shown at McLaren this past season that he can be very consistent given the means, and so therefore he would be a perfect driver. I'd probably see him more as a Ricciardo to Max Verstappen type of partnership than I think at 30 he could have got to that level where you never know, given the right circumstances he'd be given a sniff, but it'd be interesting. But I don't really. Mercedes is difficult because out of all the top teams, they have the worst academy, don't they? As in, they don't really have anyone there.
They have They have George Russell, and then they have 2 people in karting and someone in Formula Regional. So I'm not saying they're not great, but they're not ready for Formula 1 in 5 years, I'd say.
No, absolutely not. So you have to look for internally in Formula 1 with Mercedes. Unless, of course, they pick up someone like a Théo Pourchaire. Because I don't believe he is attached to an academy just yet.
Not yet, but soon he will be. He's too good not to be.
Yeah, and so that would be the ones around there, and it'd be interesting on that front. Maybe with Lawrence Stroll and Toto's connection, maybe Lance. I can't even seriously say it. No, I think Carlos Sainz and George Russell is a great shout for Mercedes, but it'll be very interesting. Obviously, this goes on to the channel, Sam, and it'll be very interesting looking back at this in 5 years' time and looking at this conversation and going, did we get any of it right? But
it'll be fun. It'll be fun seeing Grosjean, Magnussen, and Mercedes at the top of the field.
Can you imagine? I mean, Grosjean by that stage would be 37. K-Mag would be a decent age, actually. He would be a kind of prime experienced age. But yeah, geez, if Grosjean's lasted that long, I think people would revolt. I mean, I think he's naturally got the pace. If he finds his happy space, shall I call it, where he kind of performed at the levels that he did at Lotus Renault, then he's more than capable of staying in Formula 1 that long. But yeah. Could you imagine Mercedes, Magnussen, Grosjean?
Yeah, I think Grosjean will be. I think once he leaves F1, he won't be involved in motorsport. I think he'll go off do a cooking show or something.
I think he's just quite a family man. He just seems quite nice. I don't know. His kid apparently convinced him to stay in F1 this year. Wanted him to keep going. I don't really know if Grosjean has any aspirations outside of F1 because it's a struggle really. Once you dedicate your whole life to it, do you go to DTM? Do you go to Le Mans? Maybe one-off appearances. He definitely wouldn't go IndyCar. Maybe Formula E. He seems quite a forward-thinking type of bloke, but by that stage, Formula E is getting better and better. They're probably looking for younger talent rather than the old talent that they currently are. I think you're probably right. I think he'd probably walk away. But that rounds it up. That's the 10 teams, 5 years' time, and who we think, what the teams are going to shape up and look at. I'll round it off with one last question. So this is the 2025 Formula 1 World Championship. Who's won it? Constructor and driver.
Constructor, I'd say Ferrari. They're always near the top. Well, for most years they're near the top, and I think they'll still be very good. and Leclerc and Shortman, I think, will bring home the title. But for I think Russell or Max, I think they'll be the two big names for the next 10 years.
Okay. Very interesting. I'm going to back Max Verstappen here. Constructors. I'm gonna say it was a close one. Max won the edge, but Mercedes have won the constructors. That may be boring saying it in 5 years' time, but they've lost a few in between now, just to confirm things up. But I just think out of the driver lineups we've picked, they've probably got a really solid pairing in Russell and Sainz, I think, to pick up the points needed for constructors. So that's an interesting one. That'll definitely be a funny prediction, to kind of see how far off we were or how close we were to kind of getting it right.
Yeah, it's always difficult doing stuff like this. So for even just like 2 years in the future, so 5 years was quite difficult to imagine.
It's a stab in the dark, but it's quite interesting actually, because I think, by this stage we've said Ricciardo, Vettel, Bottas, Hamilton, Raikkonen, some Grosjean. I mean, yeah, God. Oh, we've both put Magnussen out. No, I put Magnussen in Haas, didn't I? But yeah, Perez out of a seat. We've changed the landscape quite a lot. And in fairness, there are quite a few drivers around that age that probably is out. Daniel Kvyat's lost his seat. Probably fair.
Yeah. I don't think he'll make it.
I just don't think he's lost his Red Bull chance, and I'm not sure anyone outside of him's giving him a lifeline, unfortunately. I think they're far more likely to give Gasly a lifeline than Kvyat.
Yeah, he might go into rally, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting. I could definitely see Kvyat going into endurance racing and doing quite well in that, being quite aggressive. But yeah. Right, Sam, I think that is probably a very good point to round things off as we kind of approach the hour mark on this chat. I think it's been great. It's during this Corona break, we've got to have kind of these kind of fun things to discuss about, and it's always fun playing around with the ifs, buts, and maybes. I mean, you can look back in the past and you go, what if this happened, or what if that happened, but it's also quite fun looking forward to the future, and it's quite interesting kind of like, some of the names we've put. But thank you, Sam, for coming on, and I hope you've enjoyed it.
I have, yeah. It's been great coming on, and like can't wait for content to come out and Formula One to be back, because I think we all need that at this point.
I think we definitely do. We are certainly missing racing. We're missing racing so much that we've wished away the next 5 years and predicting the future. But no, it's been a really good chat, mate, and it's nice to kind of chat in person, talk in person. I know technically not in person, but you know what I mean. On the other end of a Skype chat, it's quite nice to do. But yes, thanks again for coming on. And if you are new around here, guys, you can subscribe to the channel. Click that bell notification, and you can keep up to date with all our latest content, with more F1 Worldwide's fan podcasts and all sorts of fan F1 content. And obviously, some of the names we mentioned in the feeder series as well. So make sure you go and check out those videos. But for now, you F1 fans, keep racing.